So which came first, alcoholism or my depression? Or if you're thinking about a loved one, which came first to them? Were they depressed first or were they an alcoholic first? As a counselor, this is something we assess in the beginning of the counseling process because we're trying to determine which do we work on first, the depression or the alcoholism. Because if the depression is fueling the alcoholism, we need to obviously work on that first, or the alcoholism will constantly be there. The need, the pressure to use alcohol will constantly be there to cope with the depression on hand. Or vice versa, if the alcoholism is causing the depression, then we need to take away the source so that we can actually healthily start treating the depression symptoms. But there isn't always a clear answer of which came first. I usually start assessing back in childhood, adolescence, to determine were there any warning signs of depression back then, any low self-esteem, any difficulty making friends, any isolation back then, any difficulty with school and having an impact on self-esteem of I'm not good enough, or harsh parenting that was really hard to become yourself within. So that's where I usually start, and then I'll go into when did this use of alcohol or any other form of substance start? How young was it? And how did it progress from that first time using it to it becoming an ongoing, recurring pattern? So to really dive into this, we need to have clarity on what depression really is and what having a substance use problem really is. So if you want to see more details on what depression is, what are the natural symptoms and signs, click right here for my 9 signs of depression video. That'll go into a lot more detail about that. But to gloss over it really quickly, depression is medical. It's not I feel sad because something happened in my life. It is biological, coming from the brain. The brain isn't working as it should. What those symptoms look like are in that video. Dependency on a substance means that we've used the substance at such an amount where it's such a regular rate that our brain actually adjusts to having the substance in its system. So what that means is, so our brain, one of the things it creates is dopamine. And dopamine is produced anytime we enjoy something, anytime we feel good. So for example, with dopamine, if we were to eat something really tasty after we've been hungry, we have a natural dopamine hit that makes us feel good, makes us feel relaxed, the full belly shut eye kind of a feeling. And so when you use a substance, alcohol or anything else, it spikes our dopamine levels and makes us feel really good. And that's why it becomes addictive, because we want to follow and chase that good feeling over and over again. But over time, after those levels are spiked so high, our brain goes, whoa, there's too much dopamine in our system. I need to decrease that dopamine by not producing any of my own. And so now when we're not high, when we're not using, when we're not drinking, everything starts to feel dull because our body doesn't want to produce any dopamine when we eat that yummy meal or when we laugh with a friend. It produces nothing because there's already too high of dopamine in the system from the substance use. And so then we have even more of a pressure to use because that's the only times we start to feel good. The brain, when we start to detox, the brain takes on average 3 months to shift back into producing its own dopamine regularly. And so the first 3 months of sobriety are really, really tough. Okay, with all of that being said, which came first, alcoholism, substance use, or depression? So there is very clear clinical research that shows that the use of alcohol or substances over time causes depression. Even benzos, Xanax, for example, those are prescribed by a doctor, and not knowingly they use that to manage their panic symptoms. And then over time they become addicted to it. They need it more and more, and it starts working less and less. Are having depression symptoms in response as well. I can't tell you how many times I had sweet people come in to a rehab facility to detox from their Xanax after they've been prescribed by a doctor because it's causing depression and it's causing more problems than it's helping at this point. So be very careful with that one. So there's clear evidence that the use of substances over time increases depression. And then that depression, that dullness, makes us need to use it more. Vice versa, if we're going through chronic depression, everything feels hard. It's just hard getting out of bed. A few beers may help be more social and be more lively at the party. Drinking may make the day a little bit easier. And that over time turns into chronic use, which turns into the cycle that I just went through. So it is really hard to tell. One causes the other. That's why I use the chicken and the egg example, because sometimes it can be really hard. But it is good to know what seems to be the precipitating factor that caused the cycle to begin. That's really what's key. What started this cycle off? Was depression first, or was the use of substances first? Use of substances typically does start around college age or late high school. Was it a problem then? Was there depression symptoms before that? If you're struggling with it, or if a family member or someone you love is struggling with it, sit down and explore that together in a very non-judgmental, hey, let's just think this through. Remember those times we partied when we were 18? Yeah. Was it turning into chronic use then? Was it just fun then? What's different than now? If you need the help of a counselor, that can help facilitate this conversation or help your loved one really manage the depression or the substance use. To learn more about counseling or how to find the right counselor, there's some links below in that, or to learn more about JCAC and the services we offer, or people we may refer to if you want to do ongoing substance use treatment, check in the comments for those links to help you find the resources you need. Thank you so much for being a part of the JCAC community. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe, become a part of the JCAC community. Leave a comment about what your experience is of which came first for you, the chicken or the egg, alcoholism or depression. I look forward to seeing you in our next video.